Thank you so much. Um, I'm the Executive Director of the Training Center in Communication. It's a research capacity trust based out of the University of Nairobi in Kenya. And we focus on open science, advocacy, education, stakeholder engagement, capacity building, and open infrastructure. And the Africa PIDalliance is our flagship project where we are producing a digital object container identifier. So in answer to your question, it's an identifier that can accommodate both local and international PIDs, hence the multilinear nature, both handles, non-resolvable PIDs, and those that are resolvable. And also, quickly picking out of Brian's presentation, if we didn't start this, we'd be waiting another 30 years to produce a persistent identifier. I come from the global South, Africa to be precise. I think I'm the only Kenyan. There are two Africans. There's a South African, there are a few South Africans, and I. And, and the problem is that when you're looking at persistent identifiers, they've always been global North centric, and the information that and the metadata standards that are set are global North centric. And when you're looking at the lack of visibility of African research output, other than the fact that we have limited infrastructure capacities, limited funding, is the fact that we also have limited tools that can aid in increasing our visibility. And that is why we produce the digital object container identifier, which means for the first time that Africa is going to be part of this conversation as a contributor and a producer of the technology, not only as a recipient. And as I said, if we waited, because this has been going on for about 30 years, we'd be waiting another 30 years before it actually happened. So we just jumped and we waited for net to catch us. And I am happy to say that things are going well. So what areas did we focus on? We focused on indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. Why? Because this is the part that is vulnerable to helicopter science. So when you look at the research life cycle, it is easy to get the publications, but the indigenous knowledge and the cultural heritage, and that is where the images come in. And if you're looking at ethnobotany, the ethno aspect, especially in cultural heritage, connecting to health sciences, where you'll be taking body tissue samples. The question is, what are the rights on how it is protected and who owns it? And where is that data taken? And the reality is, coming from a continent where there's been a blatant abuse of our data, this is one of the ways in which we can protect it by assigning a PID to the life cycle of the object. And so you can follow the sample and the bioimage that you've taken and connect it to the people who are involved, the institutions who are involved, the funder, the project, and also the publications that came out of it. So it's a simple way of protecting the life cycle. And yes, like everybody has been talking earlier, we are using simple metadata standards because metadata is so localized. We are still trying to standardize metadata standards, and it's such a nightmare. So it is. So these are our launching partners. The data center is at the Kenya Education Network. So we felt it was important to work with NRENS, just like the way RAID is working with SURF in the Netherlands, the Africa Academy of Sciences, and the Association of African Universities. We needed all the vice chancellors saying yes to this, otherwise we'd be talking to ourselves. The African Library and Information Association and institutions, that is the umbrella body for all librarians, because they are the custodians of data management within an institute. And we already have the government of Kenya supporting us as well. But now we have more governments. Now we also have in the pipeline, we have the Zambia Research Education Network, because again, you remember talking about helicopter science, we want data staying in Africa. So if you're looking at collaborations, we need respectful collaborations whereby our data stays at home and the PIDs that we assign are fixed and they stay at home. So you can cite it, but the information originally stays at home. But then we are looking at the DOI management being done by IRITI. It's part of the DOI Foundation. So if those of you are using DataCite or Crossref, we're also in the process of becoming DOI Foundation members. It doesn't make sense to work in isolation as much as we're saying it's Africa for Africa or Africa for the world. It needs to be collaborative and also inclusive. So the DOI Foundation has been very kind to be supporting us as governing partners of the project as well. So why are we producing the digital object container identifier? We want to make infrastructure that is affordable. So some of you come from well-resourced institutes, but even within your same countries, there are institutes that are not well-resourced. So we wanted to look at an ecosystem that even a low-resourced institute can afford, whether you're in the global north or in the global south. So resources is always still an issue. And so by that, we wanted to make an infrastructure that was affordable. So we took advantage of the existing technologies. I'll take you through that. And then we want to make the user interface easy, make it normative. So it means that we're looking at data management policies. And I can assure you, most of you within your institutes don't have data management policies. That's why we keep on fighting about how do we store our data, make the process rewarding by providing incentives, and make it required. At the end of the day, we are looking at pushing for reforms in improved research data management, especially for indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. But then we are seeing that this is going beyond cultural heritage from a subject perspective, because we spoke to publishers and they said, yes, we normally get an information dump. This can come in as a workflow because they have PIDs which are not resolvable. So this can support the workflow process. And I'll show you how that works. So our focal areas is on open infrastructure. So as I said, we are leveraging on open infrastructure. We want to make more African research outputs citable and accessible, especially our data, especially in the areas that have been ignored. So if you're looking at biomedical research and natural sciences, there's a lot of PIDs that are available for that. But if you look at the same universities in the social sciences and arts and humanities, that's where we have a problem. And then the reality is that funders are saying we need to work together. So social scientists have to work with biomedical scientists. If you look at ethnobotany, you'll find one research area has all the data management support system, and then another research area doesn't have that. So we are trying to make that possible. We're also looking at capacity building. So when we started, we thought it was a PID problem. It's actually a data management problem. And when we started rolling out a training program in partnership with Figshare and F.A.I.R, we had 800 recipients for the data management training. And it just ended on Monday. It was a 4-week training, and it was literally back to basics. So as much as we're talking about bioimaging, remember, you have a librarian who doesn't understand the first and last thing about how to manage that data. So we were training them on that with various data management specialists. Then up there is a Swahili proverb, but it means little by little fills the basket, because one of the things we realized is that we need to work with various collaborators, whether it is industry, whether it is foundations, in supporting the community on data management practices. So we set up an Invest in Open Research Strategy Fund, and it's just focusing on anything to do with data management, whether it's your institute is focusing on training and education, because we realize 800 says it all, from 21 African countries. Infrastructure and tools, what are you trying to do to improve your ecosystem in data management? Data governance. By the time we're talking about this, and I can assure you most of us are taking advantage of data management because funders say so. You need a data management plan, not because you have institutionalized it. And that's what we are going through. Data management governance and also exchanging collaboration. So we are looking at raising funding to support that fund. We're trying to solve an African challenge by preserving indigenous knowledge through a persistent infrastructure. And these are our partners. But then the most exciting thing is that we are able to incorporate data site, Crossref, even the national DOIs. I spoke in August to JALC, the Japanese DOI. We are working with the Corporation of Research Innovations, but then we've recently included China as well. This is the national DOI, persistent identifier, the Common Science and Technology Resource Identification. But what does that mean? So from a product development, we are using open infrastructure. So we're using Invinia for the research data management, Codra for the digital object management. All these are open resource. And then the data center being in Africa. So at the end of the day, the docket can accommodate all these persistent identifiers. And it supports the entire life cycle of an object. that is the interface. And one of the things we've done is that we've made it into the integration languages of the continent. So what does that mean? It means that in countries where the language is, the indigenous language is actually the national language, we can actually integrate it in that language, making it the first of its kind. But then this is it. So visualize the docket. We like saying that it is the ring that rolls them all, if you are a Lord of the Rings fanatic. So, so in it, you can have the RAID for the project. You can have the organizations, the funders who are involved, the resource type in the middle, and then the outputs that came out that report to the resource type, the publications, and then the documents that came out of it. All this with the various types of identifiers report to one docket. And the docket is a persistent identifier as well. So, and this is it, if you look at it within the interface. And this is where we were interested in, that's why I was interested in this conference, because under the documents, under the whole pipeline, we do have documents which will be assigned identifiers. And remember all this, the projects, the funders, the organizations, the creators, the documents, and any kind of publication reports to the docket, which is a resource type. In this case, it could be a subject-specific or workflow-specific. And this is where we are able to assign the respective persistent identifier to the images or the bioimages. As I said, we are targeting either resource poor institutions or regions, but most importantly, it is supporting the life cycle of a digital object. Thank you so much.